The announcement doesn't make it work, so. All right, well, thank you, everybody, and welcome to the May 18th meeting of the Sacramento Council of Governments Board. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done, Director Stollard. You were almost in sync with us.
I'm in San Diego, so you know, there's a little loss of time.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Good morning. Director Baines?
Present.
Bradford?
Here.
Branscombe? Houlihan?
Here.
Burris? Absent Chapman? Desmond?
Here.
Dowden Calvillo?
Present.
Frost? Gallardo? I'll note for the record that Director Gallardo is here. She just stepped out momentarily. Director Gog?
Here.
Gore? Here. Guerrero absent. Harris? Howdeshell?
Here.
Jennings?
Here.
Joyner?
Here.
Knisely? Kozlowski?
Here.
Lauren? Lozano?
Here.
Sander? Absent. Schaefer?
Here.
Stallard?
Here.
Soon?
Here.
Thomas? Absent. Vane? Here. Villegas?
Here.
West? Absent. Vice Chair Zaragoza?
Here.
And Chair Kennedy?
Here.
Thank you. And ex officio member Fong for Benny Paul?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quorum having been established, we'll now move to public community. We will now move to public communications for any item that is not on the agenda. If the public would like to address the board at this time, now's the time to do it. And I do have a card from Robin Davis.
Hello, I'm Robin, and I live in my 160 square foot semi-off-grid tiny home on wheels on my undeveloped residential property in the city of West Sacramento. With implementation of a tiny home on wheels ordinance throughout our region, we can help meet our housing and climate goals by providing more diverse options to meet our diverse needs and diverse population. The Santa Cruz ordinance is a great example of what we can adopt and even enhance in our region. I hope you all at some point can work with your staff and community to come up with your own unique ordinance that aligns with the region's housing and climate goals. I also encourage you all to still reach out to the Tiny Home Industry Association with any questions or concerns. Another benefit of this ordinance is it helps repair the supply and demand imbalance. We have simply not met the demand for smaller homes for arguably several decades. The demand for tinies is only increasing, and it's estimated that the tiny house market size could increase by $5.8 billion between 2020 and 2024. I'd like to point out the many aspects of tiny homes, how it aligns with our goals and the purpose of Green Means Go program as a solution to California's housing and climate crisis. Tiny homes reduce carbon footprint by using less resources to build and to maintain. They use only 25% of the average traditional home's utility usage, produces 5,578 pounds less CO2 each year compared to the average home, and can lower the greenhouse effect by 36%. Tiny home community infill projects to display in designated green zones would be a great way to show this state how committed your jurisdiction is to meeting its housing, climate, and transportation goals. Lastly, an ordinance can help streamline the public process to expedite permits, requirements, and expectations. It would be beneficial to create written policy that is easily digestible for the average person and more efficient for local staff to process. Simplified permit checklist examples can be provided for reference. This also aligns with the Green Means Go program by accelerating development within areas of existing communities and infrastructure by prioritizing incentives through options like proportional impact fees and removing barriers to the building process Much of our language and policy we have been creating is exclusively designed for developers and not the average person. So we have slowly excluded individuals from building their own housing over time. This ordinance is one way we give the freedom to build our own affordable housing back to the people with options, with ease, with affordability, and with the region's environmental goals in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin. Appreciate you being here. Is there any other member of the public that is here today that would like to address the board on an item not on the agenda?
There's no other public comment.
Okay, hearing, seeing none, we will move to the consent calendar. We have items 1 through 5. Is there any member of the board that would like to pull something from consent or have any questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion from Director Goggin, a second from Director Desmond. Is there any member of the public that would like to address an item that's on the agenda, on the consent calendar? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Thank you. Director Baines?
Aye.
Bradford?
Aye.
Branscombe? Houlihan?
Aye.
Burris? Absent Chapman? Desmond? Dowden Calvillo?
Aye.
Frost? Gallardo? Gog? Gore?
Aye.
Guerrero absent. Harris? Howdeshelt?
Aye.
Jennings? Joyner?
Yes.
Nisley? Kozlowski? I'll come back to him. Thank you. Director Lauren? Lozano?
Aye.
Sander?
Aye.
Schaefer?
Aye.
Stallard?
Aye, but please mark me as abstaining on the funding round item. Thank you.
And are you talking about the upcoming agenda item on the funding round, Director Stallard?
Yes, I don't have the agenda in front of me, so if it's a separate item, I'll just be aye on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It is separate. Thank you. Director Schaefer? Thank you. Director Soon?
Aye.
Thomas absent. Vang? Villegas? West absent. Vice Chair Saragosa?
Aye.
Chair Kennedy?
Aye.
And Director Kozlowski, if you're back in the room, can you indicate your vote? I'll mark him absent. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. If board members could please state your name when you make a motion or second. It's not possible for me to see 360 view here. That would be fantastic. We'll now adjourn as SACOG and convene as the Capital Valley Regional Service Authority for Freeways and Expressways, or the CVR SAFE. Madam Clerk, could you please note of any changes to the roll call?
There are no changes to the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you. There's 3 consent items on the CVR SAFE agenda. 1 is to approve remote board meetings, 2, approve minutes from the June 17th, 2022 board meeting, and finally, to approve and release draft Capital Valley Regional Service Authority for Freeways and Expressways fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. These items are intended to be approved in one motion. However, anyone can remove an item for separate discussion. Is there a member that would like to remove an item for discussion at this time?
Through the chair,
Yes.
move to approve by Baines.
Bradford will second.
Thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board at this time for any of the items on the CVR SAFE agenda?
There's no public comment.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, since I wasn't here at the June 17th, 2022 meeting, I need some guidance on.
You can abstain from that particular item, and we'll just make a note of it in the record.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Did you get that, Madam Clerk?
I did, and I'll note for the record that Director Nisley is also abstaining, and Director Vang. Thank you. I will make sure that the record notes that our new board members as of this year are abstaining from that item.
Okay. We don't have a quorum issue then.
We do not have a quorum
Okay,
issue.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
That being said, please call the roll.
Director Baines,
Aye.
Bradford,
Aye.
Branscombe,
Aye.
Houlihan,
Aye.
Burris absent, Chapman abstains, is that correct? From the item, thank you. Desmond? Dowden Calvillo?
Aye.
Frost. Gallardo. Gog.
Yes.
Gore.
Aye.
Guerrero is absent. Harris. Haudashelt.
Abstaining from on item 2, but approval. Yes.
Thank you. Jennings.
Yes.
Joyner.
Aye.
Nisely. Kozlowski.
Yes.
Lawrence. Thank you. Lozano.
Aye.
Sander.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Abstain from item 2, but approve the rest.
Thank you. Stallard.
Aye.
Soon.
Aye.
Thomas absent. Vane. Thank you. Villegas. Thank you. West absent. Young absent. Vice Chair Saragosa.
Aye.
And Chair Kennedy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The CVR Safe Board meeting is now adjourned, and we will reconvene as SACOG. And at this time, we will also recess into closed session for the Executive Director's performance evaluation. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board before we go into closed session on this item? Hearing none, then we will recess into closed session. And if we can please clear the room of all the board members and necessary staff, that would be helpful. I said.
That was not a nice way to put that.
Yeah.
Hang out on a weekend because the acts fly into my airport, right?
Oh, nice.
Chair Kennedy, we are streaming and recording.
It's massive. It is a flex.
Okay.
Come anything.
They'll be using our airport.
And yet he doesn't have a giant tripod.
Well.
You know
All right, I'm going to call the meeting,
I tell you what.
call the meeting back to order.
Not in my jurisdiction. I get
In
nothing
open
out of it.
session. There is nothing to report out at this time other than Mr. Corliss. You and I will have an offline discussion at a very near date. And I want to thank the board for a very robust and healthy discussion. I also want to take the time to really thank our valued and highly necessary staff for coming back into the room. With that, we will move to reconvene in open session, move to item number 7, which is adopt the final budget and overall work program for fiscal year 2023, 2024. I believe Loretta Sue is here to present.
Good morning, directors. My name is Loretta Sue, SACOG Finance Director. This morning, staff is seeking board actions to adopt the final budget for fiscal year 2023-24. SACOG, as a federally designated metropolitan planning organization, is required to develop an overall work program and budget that describe the comprehensive and coordinated metropolitan planning process for the Sacramento region annually. The overall work program includes projects that support the Sacramento region and also SACOG core planning activities and projects that support SACOG strategic plan and also serve as a grant agreement between SACOG and Caltrans. The OWP is mainly funded through a combination of formula-based federal and state revenue and supplemented by short-term discretionary and non-discretionary grants and contracts. An administrative draft of the OWP and budget was submitted to Caltrans and federal agency in March for a preliminary review of major work elements and to ensure that SACOG planning activities are consistent with the purpose of the funding source that's supporting the work program. The board also authorized the release of the draft for public comments at its April board meeting. I'm just going to quickly highlight some of the key changes from the draft budgets to the final budgets. The final budget reflects a net decrease of $429,000 or 1.1% compared to the draft budget. It also reduced revenue by 1.2 million. This is mainly due to the reduction of the race grant revenue to account for the required local match of 452,000 using SACOG managed fund, and also the change in accounting for the CVR safe staff costs of approximately 740,000. The final budget also increased the use of fund balance, restricted fund balance of 729,000, mainly related to the SACOG managed fund for the race grant, and also some additional funding for the community design projects. Total expenditures reduced by 429,000. And again, this is mainly due to the excluding the CVR staff costs in the SACOG budgets. The final OWP and budget reflected comments from partners and federal and state agency. There's no fiscal impact to the budget, to the draft budget, just some minor updates to the OWP documents. I'm just going to do a quick highlights of what's included in the final budgets. So the total revenue for the fiscal year 2023 and 24 is 35.4 million. And it also includes the use of fund balance of 2.1 million total, as I noted for the reason earlier. Total expenditure is 37.5 million. This includes staff and operating costs of 14.7 million. Regional project and past due costs of approximately 16.5 million, consulting and other costs of 6.3 million. Here's just a quick overview of the combined revenue summary by category. Again, total revenue is projected to be 35.4 million, a decrease of 1.2 million compared to the draft budgets. And then also includes the use of fund balance of 2.1 million. Federal revenue makes up 34% of the total revenue, and also it reflected a decrease of approximately 500,000 that is related to the race grant required cash match. State revenue makes up 46%. This is mainly the REAP housing past due funds to member jurisdictions in support the implementation of the housing elements, and also the Green Means Go funding for the infill development in the green zone. Local revenues and other revenue makes up the remaining 16% of the budget revenue. For more information, please refer to the attachments that was included with the staff item. Attachment A show a comparison of revenue by funding source comparing to fiscal year 2022-23, and also comparing to the draft budget for fiscal year 23-24. Attachment C is the overall work program revenue by funding source, and then attachment D is the allocation of revenue by projects and activities. Here's a quick highlight of the budget expenditures by category. Total expenditures is 37.5 million. Again, a decrease of 429,000 compared to the draft budget, and an increase of 3.5 million compared to fiscal year 2022-23. The consulting and past due costs makes up 54% of the total budget. Again, this is mainly related to the REAP housing program and also Green Means Go. These are one-time funding that are passed due to member agency for the development of the housing elements and also to support the infill development in the green zones. Staff costs, which includes salary and fringe benefits, is approximately 34% of the budget, a decrease of 1.1 million compared to the draft budgets. And this is mainly because it does not include the CVR safe staff costs of approximately 740,000 and also some vacant positions. Staff has addressed the board questions related to the ability to fund ongoing position in the staff item, but if there's any additional question, happy to answer that. And then indirect costs and other costs makes up the remaining 12% of the total budgets. Attachment B is a summary of revenue and expenditure broken out by functional areas, which includes SACOG operations budgets, board and advocacy budget, and also the draft CVR SAFE budget as information. Attachment E is an expenditure by project. And then Attachment F provides a summary of revenue and expenditures and estimated fund balance for the Planning and Administration Fund at June 30th, 2024. The next step, with board approval, staff will be submitting the final OWP and budget to federal and state agency for review and approval for expenditure of funds effective July 2023. This concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions of the board at this time? Seeing none, is there any member of the public that would like to address the board on item number 7?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Then I believe a motion is.
Stallard moves approval of the budget.
Second by Baines.
The good old Tom Stallard technology. Who was the second?
Baines.
Okay, thank you very much. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Director Baines,
Aye.
Bradford,
Aye.
Branscombe,
Aye.
Houlihan,
Aye.
Burris, absent Chapman, Desmond, Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Frost, Gallardo,
Aye.
Gog,
Yes.
Gore,
Aye.
Guerrero absent, Harris, Howdeshelt,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Aye.
Nisley, Kozlowski,
Aye.
Lauren, Lozano,
Aye.
Sander,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Stallard,
Aye.
Soon,
Aye.
Thomas absent Vang. Villegas, West, absent Vice Chair Saragosa,
Aye.
and Chair Kennedy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Sue. Next item number 8, 2022-2023 Regional Funding Round Staff Recommendations. Mr. Dougherty.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Chris Doherty, the Program Manager for the 2022-2023 funding round. The item before you today is the staff recommendations for the latest funding round. This item has gone through all of the 3 of the committees this month, but which I gave a little more in-depth background on the program development, but I'll give a brief recap. The board approved the 3 programs, the Community Design, Maintenance and Modernization, and Transformative program guidelines last October. Upon that approval, we released a call for projects to the 4 county agencies for those programs. With those applications were due starting in January and ending in February, they staggered those amongst the 3 programs. Prior to the release of those guidelines and those call for projects, staff, if you look, as demonstrated here in orange, worked from June to October to have one-on-one meetings with your staff and all the agencies so that they could understand the 3 programs moving forward, and also help strategize for any of their projects and how to apply for our program. In addition to that, after the call for projects, we offered, as staff, pre-application consultations during the application period. And we made that available to any applicant in the 4-county region, and also consisted of having an open house style several meetings where people call in, drop in for questions. Approximately half of the agencies took us up on those pre-application consultations, and we felt they really did help the agencies move those applications forward. And then between February and April, staff completed the review process, which consisted of several review committees, which I'll go into a little bit. And then this item was presented to all 3 committees, as I mentioned before, with the Transportation Committee being the approving committee, which voted to unanimously approve this item, recommend this item to the board. I'm going to do a little more in-depth description of our review process. Once the applications were received by SACOG staff, they were screened to make sure they were complete, and then they were sent to the working groups. Those working groups were created, and then they reviewed those applications. The outputs of those working group reviews went in selected by program, and therefore we are at the staff recommendations that we are at that are in front of you this morning. Each of these programs had specific working groups, and this is largely because of either the number of applications received or just the structure of the programs. The community design group program had one review group, and they focused and scored the applications that they received based on the original blueprint principles and also on readiness and deliverability. The maintenance and modernization team had 3 working groups. They each had about 18 applications to review and broke those up into 2 separate meetings where those groups came back together and discussed each project on its own, and then delivered a score, which came to me, and then that came to, that was factored into our recommendation. Maintenance and modernization scored primarily state of good repair, but they had the option to choose up to 2 other performance outcomes, and those for those projects, and those are reduce vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions, increase multimodal travel options, long-term economic benefits, improve goods movement, and safety and security. For the transformative program, this is to refresh, this is the larger program for any applications that are over 5 million. The applicants were able to choose 2 program outcomes to speak to, and they had 7 to choose from. And those are, again, and all of these performance outcomes are directly come out of the adopted 2020 MTP SCS. In conjunction with the transformative working groups, which had 2 working groups reviewing 9 applications each, there was a separate engineering review group because of these transformative projects are larger and more complex. That engineering review group reviewed those applications for funding eligibility and for deliverability and gave those scores to the staff as well. So staff compiled all the outputs from the working group, and that recommendation is before you today. In total, we received 83 applications for a total for almost $312 million in requests. These recommendations that we are recommending are 42 applications be funded. That's a little over half of the applications that were submitted to us. That's 19 projects from the community design program, 15 non-competitive and 4 competitive, 17 applications from the maintenance and modernization program, and 6 projects from the transformative program for a total of $101.5 million in total award. So as I said, we received 83 applications for approximately $312 million in funding. Each program was considerably oversubscribed and very competitive, but none more oversubscribed than the transformative program, with receiving 17 applications and $170 million in requests. Just to illustrate how competitive this round was versus the last one, the slide before you shows the in 2021, the total requests in the bar of $452 million were a total funding award of $217 million. So we had funded approximately half of the projects that were submitted to us. For this round, we had approximately 30% less requests for funding, but about half of the amount of funding to meet those needs. So we were able to fund approximately 33% of the requests moving forward. So it made a much more competitive and more challenging round for application selection. But with that, we are pleased to recommend the applications for your review this morning. We are requesting that the board approve the recommendations, including project scopes and funding amounts, and also that we authorize the executive director to negotiate any necessary MOUs with project sponsors, and then update our MTIP program for the awards. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. I will start with the dumbest question of the day. Are there any board members that would like to make comments or ask questions? Mr. Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. I like that chart you showed, the last chart that showed the difference between 2021 and 2023 and how much more difficult the decisions were this year. So I appreciate that as kind of a backstop to a lot of, some of my concerns that articulate. And we had a little bit of this discussion during closed session. But first, let me preface things with thanking you and thanking staff, thanking James and everybody for your work on this. I know this is not easy, and I also want to preface it with something I said at closed session, that I'm a huge supporter of SACOG, of having a regional approach. We're obviously much stronger together as an organization. But as I said at closed session, at the end of the day, I also need to look through the lens of my district and needs of my constituents. And something I mentioned at the Policy and Innovation Committee meeting we discussed, I said, in the district I represent, about 300,000 people in unincorporated Sacramento County in a built-out environment. There's a maintenance backlog of hundreds of millions of dollars. The number one, number two, and number three concern is the condition of the roadways. And these are in environmental justice communities. These are in communities where people are in dire need of more responsive government. These are in communities that have been left behind. When I think about these communities, and James and I have had many discussions about these communities in terms of inequities, certainly inequities of the past and how the government has invested in these communities and providing adequate services in these communities. So with that as kind of a backstop, I had two big concerns. One is more kind of a comment and a request. There was a little back and forth exchange with Director Joyner and James and I during closed session about.
I'm sorry, Director. If we can refrain from referring to closed session and open session.
Yes.
Mr. Morrow would feel much better about it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. About the tension in SACOG, inherent tension in SACOG with, are we getting our fair share? Are we getting what we put into this organization? And I know there is, having a formulaic approach is not the right approach, obviously. I mean, it doesn't work that way. It couldn't work that way. But something for me, I think in terms of Sacramento County in general, not just the district I represent, is to see or maybe getting, I think, a little better assurance that over the course of time, things roughly even out. Obviously we receive funds in a formulaic way. So over time, it should reflect generally the population. And I think that's the case. James and I, you and I had a conversation about the last funding round. So something I'd like to follow up with you on that specifically. But then the other issue that is more concerning to me is that Sacramento County, the board in Sac County, we've identified, Fix It First as our number one priority for our transportation projects. And because of some of the maintenance backlog that I was just talking about a few minutes ago, and I know that we're going to be having a conversation this afternoon. I think, Chris, you're going to be a part of that, James, and some of our staff from Department of Transportation in Sacramento County. These maintenance and modernization projects, overlay projects, were our first, second, and third, and fourth, fifth, and sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth priority in projects that we submitted. And those projects have not been selected for awards from this funding round. And part of our discussion this afternoon is going to be to discuss why that is. I know that there are some issues, concerns with the applications and certainly not meeting some of the criteria. But I do think that, whether it's Sacramento County or Woodland, I think the priorities of municipalities need to be given adequate weight. And I just don't think that was the case in this funding round in Sacramento County. And so thank you for everything you've done, but for those reasons, I'm going to abstain on this item today.
Thank you, Director Desmond. Others?
Yeah, if I could speak up for Woodland.
Please do.
Yeah, thank you. I think what Rich has just said is very compelling, and it'd be consistent with the point of view from Woodland. We all agree the state of repair is a critical need for all our jurisdictions. So on the transformational to 25% of the total funding.
Director
When I served
Stollard,
at-
Director Stollard, we lost you there at the beginning of that sentence. If you could kind of go back, it sounded like that was the heart of the sentence.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
All of us realize the importance of state of repair. So much so that we limited the amount of money that could go to transformational projects. It's fundamental, the need to fix our roads. In Woodland, we have 300 miles of city streets. Yolo County has over 1,000 miles, mostly rural roads. Neither of our jurisdictions received anything from either of these categories. It's not a very nice thing to have to say we didn't feel fairly treated, when in fact the process is relatively impressive, and the presentation today was very good. Thank you. But it's cold comfort when your line says 0 and you've yet got to meet the needs and expectations of your constituents, as Rich has said. So I will also join him in abstaining from the vote today. And that's not any negative reflection on our staff, which is excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Anyone else?
Chair Kennedy, I had a rookie question, so I hope everybody will tolerate and haze me appropriately.
All questions are good questions.
Yeah, so in here, there were 2 or 3 managed lane projects. One of them received an award. Why did the others not rise to get a recommendation for funds?
I'm happy to speak to that. Largely, it was a discussion between those projects separately. If there's anything in general, I would say would be in stages of readiness. What was needed for the 2 managed lane projects that were moving forward, Yolo 80 was more near term of a need for what was needed. We are working with Caltrans and work very closely with Caltrans on how to move those projects forward at a more federal and state level as well. So they are definitely projects that we prioritize and work towards. But for this funding round, with that limited transformative round of $28.5 million, there was just not the capacity to move a project like that forward.
Sorry, through the chair. I just want to say that I hear you guys loud and clear, Sac County and Yolo County, that there's been times in the past where I was sitting in the same position or maybe felt the same way that you all do today. Again, we all have needs in our respective communities and jurisdictions that we all represent. And in this, this round here, it's very clear that they said it was a lot more difficult than rounds in the past. And some applications stood out, greater than others. And just speaking on behalf of Sutter County, that this has been a long time in the waiting for this. I just want to thank staff and, for your support and assistance and consulting with our staff and helping in part of this process. And again, I want to thank everybody for their time and consideration. And if there's no further questions, I'd like to move to approve staff's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion by Director Baines, a second by Director Villegas. Yeah. But before I want to say one thing about the process, and that's that we make it clear at SACOG to make ourselves available to agency staffs for postmortem, like we're having at the county. So if there's questions about what went well, what didn't go well, what could we do better, please reach out to SACOG staff and we can address those issues. And hopefully have a different outcome in the future. Who was it, Mr. Vegas?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The postmortem makes all the sense in the world, having worked in the grants world. I think that's the best way to sort of learn what to do next time and how to think differently, so I would support that. I guess the one thing I would add, in addition to the second of the motion, you know, two things. One, if everyone's a little bit upset, it sounds like we probably did our job right. Some might be a little more upset than others. You know, Yolo County didn't fare well, but I'm excited about the prospects. And I'd throw this out there to staff to consider. You know, we come together as a board, we talk about regionalism, the importance of it. I'd love to go to Sutter for a groundbreaking or a ribbon cutting ceremony, or at least be invited. I'd go to Dave. Well, I don't want to go to Davis. Never mind. But I know that everybody wants to go to Winters. I'm sorry, Josh. You knew that was coming. I know everybody wants to go to Winters to celebrate, you know, a groundbreaking opportunity, right? Because we're going to be fed. And so I just would throw out the idea that as we think about, you know, our role collectively, when we vote to support projects that may not be in our district. We may not be able to go home to say, look what we did, look what we brought back. But being a part of something outside of our jurisdiction might add value to the work that we do at the end of the day. So I would just leave us with that and ask staff to consider that as part of a cultural shift in terms of inviting each other to our respective groundbreaking or ribbon cutting ceremonies as we go forward to sort of celebrate the wins, even though they're not necessarily placed squarely in our district.
Thank you, Director. With that, I will open it up to public comment, and I do have a couple of cards. Vincenzo Carasa and Eric Paredes, I have you on one card.
This is on? That's on. Great. Well, good morning, Board of Directors. My name is Vincenzo Carraza. I am the Director of Public Works for the City of Marysville. And I just want to thank the SACOG Board for consideration of our two projects, and especially the agency outreach program that you have, the staff reach out to us. We are a small municipality, and that helped a lot. The one-on-ones and the pre-application meetings, I really like that. That's a really good kudos. And I'd like to introduce Eric Paredes with Blue Zone Project, our partner in this program.
Hey, good morning, members of the board. My name is Eric Paredes. I am the public policy advocate with Blue Zones Project Yuba Sutter. And, you know, I have the privilege of working with, you know, many folks who are part of this board on the county supervisors and also the different council members in the different, you know, municipalities in Yuba Sutter. So I'll pass it back to Vincenzo, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the projects. So.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the little highlight on one of our applications, the East 22nd Street multimodal modernization and maintenance safety improvement project. So we have a street in Marysville. On one terminus on the east side is the state highway, the levee, and on the west side it ends at the Marysville High School. And what's great about it is there's multiple schools along this road. So you have even toddlers, Head Start, up to the high school level. So I think 6 or 7 schools. And what's exciting about this project to me, in addition to the traffic calming elements of it, is that the multimodal elements. If you ever, my first impression of driving East Marysville when I came to town was we had this stop sign, and on top of the stop sign is a bus stop. And so I was stopping there waiting for the pedestrian to cross, and it was about 30 seconds, and I realized they're waiting for the bus. So part of this project would be to actually make bus stops, separating them from the stop sign. So that was kind of interesting. We also have sidewalk gaps that I am excited about closing so that the kids can walk to school. And something new that I saw, I think when in Sacramento they have it, Reno they have it, is our protected bike lanes. Traditional bike lane, you have the bike traveling next to the traveling lanes, and we're going to switch it. So then the bike lanes are to the right of the parked vehicles. So I want the kids to be able to ride to school and feel there's a buffer between them and the traveling public. So that was a little bit of the elements of this. We started the design of the East 22nd Street project. We have the first phase funded with ARPA funds. It's to the west of Levee. And so this application allows us to continue all the way to the high school. So really appreciate that. We have full council support with the first phase, and this one will just be, cream on the crop. So appreciate that. So I'll let Eric talk about the other project that we have.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to highlight the historic downtown Marysville Safety and Walkability Enhancements Project. So just do want to note that, Blue Zones Project has been teaming up with the city of Marysville to have weekly walking moais. So a moai is an Okinawan word that means coming together for a common purpose. So what we've been doing is we've been teaming up with the city of Marysville to walk every Monday at 7 p.m. We meet at the Brick in Marysville in downtown. So want to extend that invitation for anyone here that wants to join us. Every Monday at 7 p.m. We come together with the Public Works Director, the Community Development Director, the mayor has joined as well, community members, and many different, stakeholders. And what's really good about these walks is, not only are we connecting and interacting with each other, but we're also taking the opportunity to walk around downtown Marysville and assess, the state of our streets, on the walkability aspect, bikeability. So that's a really awesome part about these walking moais. So us at Blue Zones Project, we are happy to partner with the city of Marysville to improve safety and walkability throughout the city. But also just really looking forward to working with other folks throughout the Yuba Sutter region to, on future projects to improve the walkability and safety throughout the region. So I'll pass it back to Vincenzo to close us off.
Sure. So once again, thank you for the board for considering Marysville's 2 regional funding projects. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Next up, Ashley Feeney. And just remind members of the public, we do not have a clock on public comment, but we do have a clock on the wall. So
I'm going to take heed to that message. Good morning, Chair Kennedy, members of the board, Ashley Feeney, Citrus Heights City Manager, here as a representative of our team. Just wanted to express our gratitude for an opportunity to apply for this funding round. Our team put a lot of effort into some complete street projects that's got a lot of community support. They've been long envisioned by the community for Auburn Boulevard and San Juan as well. And they were very competitive when you looked at them against the criteria. And so we're grateful that they're being recommended by staff and the committees for funding in this round. And we respectfully request your support of those projects. Thank you.
thank you very much, Mr. Feeney. Autumn Bernstein.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Autumn Bernstein, I'm the Executive Director of the YOLO Transportation District. Our agency, in partnership with Caltrans District 3, did request $13 million for our Managed Lanes project on Interstate 80 in YOLO County. We were one of the projects that you funded for $3 million, not $13 million, but we are very grateful for that support. We do have an $86 million federal infra grant that we have to obligate by September of 2024, which means we have to be ready for construction. So those funds will really help us get there. The work you're funding will include a lot of necessarily technical studies, but also this is not just crucial to our project. We are working to lay the foundation for tolling in the region, and we're really mindful of the precedent that sets as the first tolling project in the region. So for that reason, we're working with SACOG staff and our partner agencies in your counties across the region to really ensure the choices we're making in YOLO County will allow your counties to leverage that tolling work if and when you decide to bring tolling to your counties. I do want to acknowledge the concerns about the process that Director Stollard and others have made, and just want to appreciate SACOG staff who've included us in help working to shape the next funding round. So we respectfully request your support for our $3 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bernstein. That's all of the public comment cards I have. We'll bring it back to the board. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, well, we already have a motion and a second. That's right. Thank you. Then please call the roll.
Thank you. Director Baines?
Aye.
Bradford?
Aye.
Branscombe?
Yes.
Houlihan?
Aye.
Burris absent. Chapman? Desmond? Dowden Calvillo?
Aye.
Frost? Gallardo? Gog?
Yes.
Gore?
Aye.
Guerrero absent. Harris. Haudashelt.
Yes.
Jennings.
Yes.
Joyner.
Aye.
Nisley.
Yes.
Kozlowski.
Yes.
Lauren.
Aye.
Lozano.
Aye.
Sander. Absent. Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Schaefer.
Aye.
Zune.
Aye.
Stallard.
Respectfully abstain.
Thomas absent. Vane. Yes. Villegas.
Yes.
West absent. And Chair Kennedy.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next few agenda items are informational, with the first being item number 9, the 2025 Blueprint Update Built Environment Poll. Mr. Holtzen.
Good morning. I'll be brief so that we can spend some more time with our guest speaker today. I just want to kind of put some punctuation on the kind of the very major outreach and engagement efforts that we have underway as part of the 2025 update to our blueprint. We're really, really striving to elevate kind of that public engagement, community voices to a level that is equal to the technical analysis and work that we bring to you every month on the blueprint. We've got, I won't go into details in the staff report, but we are doing focus groups. We're doing pop-up workshops where we're going into your communities and meeting with people where they're at. We've already got over, I think, 1,200 responses to those kind of surveys, those on-the-spot surveys that we're doing. About more than half of those have come from the partnerships that we've established with community-based organizations. If you recall, and in your staff report, we ran a small grant program where we were giving some $5,000 mini grants to community-based organizations to help us get the word out, help us reach individuals, communities that we don't typically hear from in this type of a regional planning process. And then today we're going to hear from Evan Schmidt with Valley Vision on a partnership that we undertook with them and with Sac State for a built environment poll to get people's perspectives and ideas about the environment that they interact with on a daily basis. So one thing that I think we could really use help for, kind of that is an aspirational, it is a very challenging goal to bring community opinion and voices up to the same level of technical analysis. We here in the planning world and at SACOG are good at the technical side. Bringing community voices up is a hard challenge that we put out in front of ourselves. So to the extent as you're hearing the presentation from Evan, you hear things that really resonate with you. These are your constituents. If there's more information that we can bring to you, weave together with our technical analysis, if there are issues, topics, questions that arise to you, that type of input and direction would be tremendously helpful to us as we continue to talk to you about the blueprint over the coming months. This is kind of a first kind of a big presentation on the outreach activities that we've done. We'll be coming back to you with our survey results. Hopefully later this summer, we're coming to you with some results from focus groups that we did. We held a series of focus groups, both in Spanish and in English, on kind of big topics that we're working on with this blueprint. So with that, I will pause to make sure we have plenty of time for the presentation and any conversation and questions after. And then, of course, I'm here and the rest of the SACOG staff are here to hear your input, and we can pop up if you do have any questions for us. With that, I will hand it over to Evan.
Thanks, Clint. And good morning, Chair and members of the board. Great to be here with you this morning and excited to be talking to you about the results of the Built Environment Poll. So as Clint said, my name is Evan Schmidt. I'm the CEO of Valley Vision.
Yeah,
Louder?
Evan,
Closer?
this microphone's really tough, so you really have to project.
Okay, how's that better?
Thank you.
Okay, great. So Evan Schmidt, CEO of Valley Vision. I think most of you are familiar with Valley Vision, but we're a nonprofit located here in Sacramento. We're regionally facing, and we work to create livable communities across this region. We work with triple bottom line values, just like SACOG, so we have so many alignments in the work that we do, but in everything we do, we try to co-equally advance economic prosperity, social equity, and environmental sustainability. I'm also here today with Danielle Souza. She is Valley Vision's research and communications specialist. She's done so much of the work to assemble this data and this presentation, so really thank her in her very good work. Okay, so Valley Vision conducts polling usually about twice a year. This is a public opinion poll tool that we have in partnership with the Sac State Institute for Social Research. And so it is what we do is we recruit a panel. This is a panel of people who have agreed to answer surveys for us. We do that by sending postcards out to over 100,000 people across our 6-county region. And what we have back is a pool of about 3,000 people who have agreed to answer surveys for us. We have that in English and Spanish. They can do it online or on paper by mail. And, you know, one of the great things about this tool is that it's a scientifically validated tool with an acceptable margin of error. So in this case, our margin of error is about 2.3%. Our total number of respondents for this poll was 1,744 people. And like I said, it's in our 6-county region. And this poll data is also weighted to represent the demographics of the region as a whole. So we have a lot of trust and confidence in the data that we're delivering really does reflect the views of the region. So I'll talk a little bit just about the big picture of the built environment poll. So this was designed to look at the built environment of our communities, including housing, transportation, neighborhood amenities, open space. And what we really wanted to learn about was people's experiences, their perceptions, and learn a little bit more about the way their built environment impacts their daily lives. And especially because we're really concerned with quality of life, really acknowledging the role that the built environment has in our quality of life and really tagging back to that as a really important component of our communities and of our region. So I'm going to go through just a few themes. The data that I'm going to share with you is really high level. We're going to actually release the full report on Monday. So you're getting a little bit of a sneak peek of what's kind of been pulled through our executive summary. Once you get that report, you'll see a lot more information about what I'm sharing here. But I just wanted to give you all a little taste of what's to come. So the first theme I'm going to talk about is housing affordability. What we learned in our poll, and this shouldn't be a huge surprise, is that people are really concerned about affordability. It's one of the big issues that they see as a concern in our region. When we look at this idea, is your neighborhood affordable or not affordable? Overall, about half of the poll respondents would not describe their neighborhood as affordable. And one really useful lens that we use throughout this poll is looking at homeowners and renters as two separate groups of people because they have really different views about the built environment, about housing and transportation. So if you look at our top pie chart there, you can see that about 52% of homeowners would describe their neighborhood as affordable. But then if you look down at the bottom one, only 46% of renters would describe their neighborhood as affordable. So the majority there kind of flips. The other thing I want to flag as we go through all this data is to think about that minority piece of the data, because sometimes you'll look at something anywhere over 50%, you'll say, oh, the majority say this. But when you're talking about something like housing affordability and other basic needs, it's really important to think about what does that mean that 54% of renters find their neighborhoods not affordable. That's a lot of people, and that's a really significant finding. You know, and then same with homeowners at 48%. So just really, you know, think about what those numbers really mean. And this slide is looking at kind of what's going on with housing affordability. And one of the issues that we're seeing, and this is really data coming from SACOG, is housing production in our region and really acknowledging that we're behind where we need to be in terms of housing production. So that top bar chart shows the annual production from 2009 to 2019. And then the bottom is the annual need projected out to 2040. And so we're doing about half the amount of housing that would help support, you know, a really well-functioning housing market. And when we think about the cost burden of housing, it's also really important to know that not everybody is experiencing the same thing. So affordability has a much higher burden for our communities of color. And there's historic reasons for this, including redlining and other deliberate policies that really kept people of color out of high demand neighborhoods and out of home ownership. So thinking about cost burden as anyone who's paying more than 30% of their income on housing, you can see that Black and Hispanic communities are the most cost burdened in our region, with white the least. And so really thinking about that racial component, that equity component, as we think about the burden of housing affordability. All right, this is kind of the next big topic that we're going to talk about, and that's the housing type needs across the region. And, you know, I think the high level finding is that we really need robust, diverse housing in our region to meet all the needs and all the income levels, all the stages of life, all the different geographies across our whole 6-county region. So what you're seeing in this pie chart is a question of, would you rather live in a predominantly single-family home neighborhood or a neighborhood that has a mix of housing such as family homes, condos, townhouses, and apartments? And you can see that 64% of people note that they would like to live in a predominantly single-home family neighborhood. But again, I think if you look at this nuance, looking like really kind of focusing on that minority number, that 36% is a really interesting data point, especially when you consider that the amount of attached or mixed-use housing that we have in our region right now is closer to 31%. And so what you can take from that is that not everybody who wants to see that attached housing product in their neighborhood actually has that available to them. So, you know, really important to think of how this connects to the actual mix of housing in our region and what does that mean when we think about how we're building communities in the future. I think the other thing to note about these, this mixed use housing type or attached housing products, attaching it to what we just talked about around affordability, that these housing types are often a pathway to home ownership and to more affordable homes. So that's another really important component when we think about these attached home housing products. And here I want to talk a little bit about so as we're building homes in the region, how does that look when it comes to either attached housing products or single family homes? And what we've seen is that the construction of attached housing products has been disproportionately low over the last couple of decades. So 31%, like I said, of the region's existing homes are attached, but that share is shrinking because over 40% of the homes that have been built since 2001 are single-family homes. So even just to meet the needs that we have around the types of housing that people want to see, we'd really need to increase our share of attached housing products throughout our region. So one of the questions that we asked in this poll, and we've actually asked it in the past in a livability poll back in 2018, was, do you think we need to speed up on building housing and not let so many obstacles get in the way? Or do you think we need to slow down on housing? And I'm looking for the exact language here. We need to slow down on building new housing because neighborhoods are changing too fast. And when we asked this question back in 2018, the split was exactly 50-50. We had 50% of our respondents saying we need to slow down on housing, and we had 50% saying we need to speed up. So very mixed result there, and really demonstrating a lack of consensus around how do we want to grow? What should that look like? So we asked it again, and this time it tipped a little bit towards we need to slow down because neighborhoods are moving too fast. So if you looked at the entire pool of respondents, it was 54% said that we need to slow down. But again, if you break this between homeowners and renters, you can see that result flips. And for renters, I should say, so 64% of renters say we need to speed up on building housing as opposed to 40% of homeowners. And then that also differs by where you live. So you can see these categories of urban, suburban, rural. In urban environments, the majority of people say, I think we need to speed up on building housing, and then it goes down from there. And so really divergent views on this question and really showing this kind of lack of clarity, lack of vision around the way we want to grow as a region. I wanted to dive into a little more details around types of housing and people's experience around housing and their priorities when it comes to housing development. So you'll see in this first chart, the question of should we prioritize building more single-family homes, or should we prioritize building more attached housing products like condominiums, townhouses, or apartments? Again, a flipped view between homeowners and renters, where the majority of homeowners would like to see single-family homes and the majority of renters would like to see more attached housing products. The next question was, all things being equal, would you like to live in a neighborhood where the homes are closer together, more convenient to walk and use public transit? Or would you like to live in a neighborhood where they're further apart from one another and you have to drive? Again, you see different results by homeowner or renter status, but really good results in this. You want to live in a neighborhood where the homes are really consistent results and where homes are further apart and you have to drive to work. You see the majority of homeowners looking for that. Okay, the next category is around transportation, and that we've got a kind of shifting over to talking about transportation. So one thing that we saw, and again, this might not be a big surprise, but we saw a high degree of reliance on personal vehicles. Overall, it was, I think, 93% who said that they primarily use their personal or family vehicle for commuting. But again, looking at the minority numbers as you look at walking, biking, ride sharing, and public transit, those numbers translate to a fair amount of people who are using different types of modes of transportation on their regular commute. I think really importantly, we talked to people about, would you be willing to use public transit under different conditions where improvements are made? So we had 38% would use public transit more with safety improvements, 28% with sanitation improvements, and 26% with travel time efficiencies, and 21% with longer run times and more frequent trips. So there's definitely some potential there, I think, to get people on public transit. And I think that's a challenge in this moment, thinking about kind of how people's commute patterns have changed post-pandemic, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But we had some also promising results around, is public transit getting better, staying the same, or getting worse? We have 46% saying it's staying the same, 29% saying getting better. And those results are actually a little more positive than when we asked this question in our transportation poll back in 2017. We also had 46%, I believe, saying that, that bike pedestrian paths are getting better. We asked some questions about this transition towards electric vehicles, knowing that that's a major goal of the state of California, and we have this ambitious goal in California to be electric by 2035. So we wanted to know what people think about that. We saw overall 54% of our respondents were supportive of that goal. And when you break that down by age categories and you look at that youngest age category of 18 to 34, that number shot way up to almost 3/4 of our respondents saying, yes, they're really in support of that. The concerns that people had, or the things that they think might get in our way, is affordability of EVs and the lack of adequate charging infrastructure and charging stations. We wanted to ask questions, and we actually, for every poll that we have done since 2020, we have asked these same questions because we want to know, how are people's work-life or work commute patterns and remote work patterns, how are those changing? And what we've seen just overwhelmingly, that people are commuting a lot less. And so here in this chart, you can see it broken down by how many days per week, pre-pandemic and current. So if you look at 5 days a week, we used to have half of people commuting 5 days a week. Now it's down to 8%. And really, that number from never has gone from, 9% to 23%. So a lot fewer people commuting. And then when we ask people, do you anticipate that this will change? And I think this is one of the most important pieces of this slide. Of 71%, they anticipate no change in the future. So really supporting this idea that some of our major changes around commuting and where we work are changing for good, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. I'm getting to my wrap-up slides, but I want to kind of bring to the fore this idea of being a region of choice. People have a lot more options. People aren't as anchored to their workplace. Everybody has the opportunity to be more mobile, to live where they want, and we want our region to be a region of choice. And we see that is happening when we look at the trends around people moving into our region. We've been one of the fastest growing regions in California. So I think we've fared really well as people have been kind of assessing their options about where they live. When we asked this question in the poll, given that your position is remote, would you consider relocating to a different part of California or outside the state? We had 50% of people saying, yep, they would consider it. So they don't have plans to move, but they would be open to it. So that really reinforces this. We want to be a region of choice. And so these issues around our infrastructure and the livability of our communities and our quality of life, these are things to be leaning in on right now and really making sure that we're thinking carefully about how we're building our future and the types of communities that we want to live in. That's why the Blueprint's a great timing, a great place to have that conversation. We've been really grateful to be in this partnership so that we can help inform the Blueprint process with this data. And I know there's a lot more to do and a lot more to dig into. So just to wrap up, we're seeing that we are a region where we have rapid growth. And, you know, that's been really clear in the last few years. It's really important that we have housing for all. So that idea of having diverse housing products that fit every life stage, every income, every geography, to really give people what they need to live here and stay here. We need to have transit choices. So one thing that is in the report that I didn't talk about too much are concerns about congestion. That came out really strong in the polls. So, you know, people see congestion as some of the bigger quality of life issues, especially as it relates to the built environment. So we're not going to, you know, the transition to EV vehicles is not going to ease that. We need to be using different modes of transportation and really building that out for our communities. And finally, like I just said, we want to be a region of choice. We want people to want to live here, to want to stay here, and to provide really high quality of life. So with that, I've got my contact and Danielle's contact information here. Like I said, the full report is scheduled for public release on Monday. I think you all will get it in an email tomorrow. And you know, the purpose of our public opinion polling at Valley Vision is to inform decision makers like you. So we really see this public opinion poll as what we hope is a real asset for the region to help drive data-driven decision-making, to help give a sense of community perception and experience, and to help inform investments and priorities that we're advancing. So thank you so much. I'm happy if we have time to answer any questions, and look forward to engaging more with you on this.
Thank you, Evan. Look forward to the full report. What you just presented was actually quite fascinating, so look forward to the entire report. Are there any brief questions?
Real quick, remote work, and those were startling statistics.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know what's happening here in Sacramento, but I know in San Francisco, downtown office building properties are being marked down 60 to 70%, and that will have a cascading effect on neighboring businesses and what have you. Do you know what's going on in Sacramento?
I mean, that issue of downtown, especially when you think of state government and their practices around coming back to work and what that means for our real estate, is a huge transformative issue right now. Another project that we're actually partnering with SACOG as well is employer surveying. We did one last fall, and we've got another one out in the field right now. And in fact, if we share that link with you, would love it if you could share it with your business stakeholders and communities. But the idea there is to really get a better understanding from an employer's perspective of what they're doing and kind of, you know, what are their policies around coming into the office and what does that look like for them. So I think that kind of helps understand the trends, but I think this issue of remote work just is going to continue to be a huge issue. And I know some of the conversations we're having around the employer survey are with our other transit agencies to be really thinking about what does it mean in terms of run times and the way we are managing our public infrastructure in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no public comments on this item. Is that correct?
There's no public comment.
Okay, again, thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
Well done. I'm going to recommend that we continue items 10. Well, obviously, we will continue item 10, but item 11, is that okay, Director Gore? Director Gore, are you okay with me continuing your item until the next meeting? Okay. Okay, so we will continue those two items, which takes us toward the end of our agenda and reports. I have no report other than it would be great if, you know, we could do something about that microphone.
So noted.
Okay. Are there any other board members that have any reports this time? Yes.
I do. I just wanted to announce that our town manager, Sean Rabe, is moving to Auburn, and we're taking on the city of Colfax town manager, Wes Heathcock. And also, just in light of the biking, this is biking month, we lost our finance director in a biking accident, and we have appointed a new we decided not to go out for election on that. So we have appointed a new person. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry to hear that. Next. Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment since we have a representative from Blue Zones here in the audience today, that Sutter County is the first jurisdiction to be certified Blue Zone. So kudos to Sutter County, and thank you for for helping and assisting us with that certification. And to Supervisor Viejas and everyone else, open invitation to Sutter County anytime. You are all welcome.
Thank you. Yes, sir,
Mr. Chair, so speaking about open invitation, I wanted to give an open invitation to the 99th Annual Wheatland Pet Parade this Saturday in the city of Wheatland on Main Street. It's really easy to find. If you turn the wrong way on Main, you'll notice no one's there and you can go the other way. You'll be good. You don't have to register, so if you want to bring your pet, and pet includes far more than just dogs and cats. Sometimes there's pigs and chickens in the parade, so or make a float, and you just show up. It starts at 9:30 in Wheatland, and then you just walk in the parade and have a good time. Or you can be a little more mellow like me and just watch everyone else walk in the parade. So.
Thank you, Director.
You actually got about a minute on KFBK this morning.
It's the best publicized pet parade in Northern California. Somebody else?
Lot to report from Roseville, but the one thing we did last night was provide incentive for Baseline Marketplace, which is at Fitterman and Fitterman and Baseline. Yeah, that's what it's called, right? Yeah. And so they will be bringing a new Costco to town, and it's unique because it has a car wash, not just a gas station. So, I love it on my side of town because that's where the only Costco is. So some of that west side of Roseville traffic will stay in West Roseville. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Just quickly, the Folsom Pro Rodeo will be happening over the 4th of July weekend again in Folsom this year. It's July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, any of those 3 days. And the tickets sell out weeks in advance. So if you're at all interested in a nice fireworks show and good fun around a show-dio, because no actual competition takes place, you're welcome to join us in Folsom for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
I have purchased my ticket.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Cordes.
All right, real quick. This Saturday, we have the Youth Leadership Academy graduation, Saturday morning here in this boardroom. That's our 5th class graduating of youth leaders and high school students. I'm going to attend and say a few words. Everybody is welcome. The registration will open up again the fall. Please encourage your high school students to participate. They really get a kick out of this. June 16th, you all know this. I hope we've given you now the materials to send around, registration links. It's the workshop in Folsom on the blueprint. We want as many people there as possible. So I think you've gotten from Lynette some things to share. Click, register, get your staff, organizations in your communities, community leaders. And following the 8:30 a.m. to noon workshop on the blueprint will be a luncheon celebrating 5 years of Youth Leadership Academy, separate registration, but it will be awesome, so don't miss it. And then finally, just in terms of a lot of love for Yuba and Sutter this morning and Blue Zones. I am so excited that Yuba Sutter has Blue Zones. We met with the staff a couple of weeks ago. We are doing our next offsite board meeting in Yuba County in August 17th. Try to beat the heat and do it in the morning like we usually do, but we're going to be talking in the workshop about safety, safe streets, safe routes to schools, Blue Zones. Very excited to be up in Yuba County next. So mark your calendars, and we'll see you obviously back here in this boardroom in June. You don't meet in July, and we'll see you in Yuba County in August. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Everything else is receive and file. If there's no questions on a receive and file item, then this meeting is adjourned. Please note that we're holding an optional lunch presentation beginning at noon in 10 minutes here in the boardroom on YOLO 80 managed lanes. If you wish to participate, please be back here in 10 minutes.